Good morning. Today we received great news for our economy and our recovery, and for the American people. This morning we learned that in May, our economy created 559,000 new jobs, unemployment rate fell to 5.8%, and wages went up for American workers. That means we have now created over 2 million jobs in total since I took office. More jobs than ever been created in the first 4 months of any presidency in modern history. Triple the rate of my predecessor, 8 times the rate of President Reagan. The unemployment rate is now below 6% for the first time since the pandemic hit. The first 14 months, first time in 14 months, we saw the largest decline in the number of long-term unemployed in more than an entire decade, in the last 10 years. Long-term unemployment dropped by the second largest amount ever recorded. Not only that, but the signs of further progress are already here. This report is based on a week in early May. That's how they determined the job rate growth or loss. We have growth, and that week in May, we only had 35% of working age adults had been fully vaccinated. Now they were still all wearing masks. Since then, 21 million more adults have gotten vaccinated, making it easy for them to return to work safely. In short, this is progress, historic progress. Progress that's pulling our economy out of the worst crisis it's been in 100 years. And it's testament to the new strategy that is growing this economy, not only growing it, but growing it from the bottom up and the middle out. Remember, when I took office in January, our economy was in a tailspin. Job growth had stalled. COVID was raging. Average initial claims for unemployment insurance were over 830,000 per week. Now those claims have fallen below 430,000, about half of what they were when I took office. Before I took office, almost 24 million Americans were going hungry. Remember those long lines of cars, miles long, people waiting for just a box of food to be put in their trunk? That number has already dropped by 25%. Still too many, but clear progress. Before I took office, independent experts were projecting that the American economy would grow by 3 or 4% in 2021, this year. This week, the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development, the so-called OECD, which makes up a group, includes the world's largest economies in its membership, and has been one of the leading bodies analyzing economic growth worldwide and individual nations, increased their projection for U.S. economic growth this year to 6.9% in 2021. That's the fastest pace in nearly 4 decades. In fact, the U.S. is the only major economy where projections of future growth are stronger today than they were before the pandemic hit in 2020. And in May, manufacturing activity was nearly as strong as it was in more than 15 years, stronger than in 15 years. No other major economy in the world is growing as fast as ours. No other major economy is gaining jobs as quickly as ours. And none of this success is an accident. It isn't luck. It's due in no small part, first of all, the cooperation of the American people in responding to my effort to get COVID under control, wearing masks initially and getting vaccinated. And it's no small part to the bold action we took by passing the American Rescue Plan. The plan provided those resources to get shots in people's arms, underwrite the vaccination effort, enough vaccine supply for every single American, more vaccinators, people to put shots in the arms, and more vaccination sites. And now, 52% of American adults are fully vaccinated. 75% of our seniors are fully vaccinated. And the American Rescue Plan delivered economic benefits directly to the American people. Because of that law, more than 167 million of those rescue payments of up to $1,400 have gone out to individual families. A recent study, the Census Bureau data, found just how much these checks mattered. They drastically reduced depression, according to the study, anxiety, and hardship for families. More than 40% fewer families struggle to afford food, rent, utilities, car payments, student loans, and health care expenses. Small businesses and restaurants were getting killed. Now we're delivering loans and support they need to reopen and to stay open. Schools are struggling to reopen, so we made vaccinating teachers a priority. We delivered schools the much support they needed. State and local governments had to lay off tens of thousands of educators and first responders. Many are now back on the job thanks to the rescue plan. In fact, in May, state and local governments added 103,000 education jobs, returned them to work. These funds are continuing to get out this month to support state and local governments, which will help get more people back to work. Small and medium-sized businesses are now able to take advantage of a special tax credit called the Employee Retention Tax Credit. It provides businesses a generous tax credit to retain or hire more workers. Through our Restaurant Revitalization Fund, we anticipate being able to help over 100,000 hard-hit restaurants stay open or reopen. And beginning next month, most families with children will be getting a tax cut, which should be going and deposited in their accounts directly into their bank accounts every month. We know that access to child care is one of the biggest barriers in the way of parents going back to work. Our administration is delivering $39 billion in child care relief to help child care providers get back on their feet, the providers, and serve more families. And this month, our economy added nearly 20,000 more child care jobs that weren't there last month, in fact, allowing parents to have access to get help. And temporary boost in unemployment benefits that we enacted, I should say, help people who lost their jobs through no fault of their own and who still may be in the process of getting vaccinated, but it's going to expire in 90 days. That makes sense, it expires in 90 days. To sum it up, look, COVID cases are down. COVID deaths are up. Unemployment filings are down. Hunger is down. And vaccinations are up. Jobs are up. Wages are up. Manufacturing is up. Growth is up. People gaining health care coverage is up. And small business confidence is up. America is finally on the move again. As we continue this recovery, we're going to hit some bumps along the way. Of course, that'll happen. We can't reboot the world's largest economy like flipping on a light switch. There's going to be ups and downs in jobs and economic reports, but we're going to be supply chain issues and price pressures on the way back to stability and steady growth. In the coming weeks, my administration is going to take steps to combat these supply constraints, building on the work we're doing on the computer chips. That is, we're providing more computer chips to be manufactured here in the United States so it doesn't slow up the manufacturing of automobiles, for example. Everyone needs to get their shots, though. Now's the time to accelerate the process we've been making. Now's the time to build on the foundation we've laid. Because while our progress is undeniable, it is not assured. That's why I proposed the American Jobs Plan and the Americans Family Plan. For generational investments, we need to make those investments today to be able to continue to succeed tomorrow. We have a chance to seize on the economic momentum of the first months of my administration, not just to build back, but to build back better. This much is already clear. We're on the right track. Our plan is working, and we're not going to let up now. We're going to continue to move on. I'm extremely optimistic. I hope you are as well. And may God bless you. May God bless America. May God protect our troops. Thank you all for being here this morning.
President, give us a headline on the infrastructure talks.
I'm going to be having a talk this afternoon, and I'll be able to report to you after that.
Are you expecting a counteroffer, Mr. President?
I'll tell you after I meet this afternoon.
Mr. President, you spoke confidence in Dr. Fauci.
Hi, everyone. I'm Diane Mercedes. We've been watching President Biden deliver remarks on the May jobs report. I want to bring in ABC News political director Rick Klein and business correspondent Deirdre Bolton for a little bit more on this. Deirdre, the president is painting a pretty rosy picture of the economy and how things are looking after this jobs report, which, granted, was much better than the previous month. But the previous month's numbers were very low. So overall, what is the picture here, especially considering the jobs report this month was still below expectations.
It certainly was, Diana. And I think what this shows is what the president said. We are on the right track. But given the shock that we had to our economy, this isn't like a light switch where you just flip on the switch, all the jobs come back. I mean, we're still missing more or less about 7.5 million jobs from the U.S. economy if you look to where we are now versus February 2020. So Congress has been amazing. Both former President Trump and President Biden have really passed these big muscular measures, which is making our economic recovery better and faster than it was after the last shock in 2007 to 2009, where it took us a decade, Diane, to get all of the jobs back. So most economists that I'm speaking with say, look, the recovery is going to be faster, but it is not a straight line up. So I think most people that I was speaking with this morning say today's figures were a modest disappointment. The one thing that I think we can underline, which is a bright spot, is the fact that jobs added were revised higher for the previous 2 months. So it's showing you that the trend is moving higher. We're moving in the right direction. It's just going to take time, Diane.
And Rick, there's a lot in it right now for Biden because, one, we know that the market is a lot of psychology, essentially. If people feel confident, they're more likely to spend, they're more likely to invest. And also, he's trying to get more bills through Congress to help in terms of economic relief. So what is he trying to do with this speech today?
Yeah, Diane, this is a pivotal day for his infrastructure plan. He referenced just at the end of those remarks his meeting later this afternoon with the chief Republican negotiator on the Senate side, Senator Shelley Moore Capito of West Virginia. And that could be a make or break moment for bipartisanship when it comes to infrastructure and really whether infrastructure can happen at all. And the message he's been trying to deliver and using today's jobs numbers to try to reinforce is the economy is on the move and it needs more attention. You can't give up now. It's an odd kind of political box that he's in, because if the numbers are too high, if it feels like the economy is too overheated, you hear inflation concerns and more skepticism about the need or the wisdom of dumping additional trillions of dollars into the economy. But that trajectory is important, and he's got some good numbers to hype. You heard him making all sorts of comparisons to previous presidents. I feel like all of that is of a piece to the argument that he's making to maybe some jittery Democrats, as well as some Republicans who definitely want to see COVID ended and want to see us on the other side of the economic recovery, that Biden's economic policies are working. And that's difficult. You live by the numbers, you die by the numbers as a politician. But today you're hearing him say this at a time where his agenda is in the balance.
And Deirdre, there are still millions of Americans looking for work right now. So what industries right now seem to be doing the most hiring? Where should people who need work be looking?
Well, the big standout is in leisure and hospitality, and we got even a data point yesterday that showed that very clearly. It's not a huge surprise. This was really the sector that was hardest hit during the pandemic. So this is where there is the most growth. So if people are looking for jobs, leisure and hospitality, that whole entire restaurant, bar, hotel, travel sector, they would like to hire you. The other place that we're seeing a lot of growth is in healthcare, and there's sort of a nod to non-essential procedures. So think about dentists, or think about maybe your shoulder hurt during the pandemic, but not enough to go see a doctor. Now people are beginning to take on those appointments. That means doctors are bringing in more and more of their staff. The third area that's seeing the most hiring is actually trade and transport, very much linked to retail. So as more and more stores open, they need more goods, and that is sort of part of this supply chain. And we are seeing jobs and companies that are in those spaces almost downright desperate for workers, Diane.
And on the flip side to that, Deirdre, there are a lot of companies that are out there saying, listen, we're trying to hire. We're putting the help wanted sign up. We're putting the ads out there, and we cannot find people to take the job. So I kind of want to get both of your take on this, because this is both an economic argument, but it's also turned into a political discussion. So first, Deirdre, I want to go to you on what economists are saying about this, the fact that there are companies out there in this economy, millions of people looking for work, and yet all these companies trying to hire saying they can't find anyone to take the job.
Diane, to be sure, it is a puzzle. Everyone that I speak with is trying to have the right inputs to get kind of the right formula. But it's not just a single, there's a job open, we need workers, and then there's workers. Sometimes people have left the workforce, and even if that person is ready to come back, that exact job may not be available. There are still people concerned for health reasons. Maybe they live with somebody who is immunocompromised. Not every state has followed the same guidelines. So I do think, thank goodness, we seem, touch wood, to be past the worst in the pandemic, but health concerns are still on the forefront of many Americans' minds. You also have childcare, which remains clearly an outstanding issue. Some schools are not open yet. Some daycares are not open yet, or not open at the same hours that they once were. And for many people, that does remain a challenge. So I think those two factors do have to be added in to the overall equation, Diane.
So, Rick, how does that all factor in on Washington? Because you've got a lot of people, particularly Republicans, pointing to the COVID relief bill, bolstered unemployment benefits, all those kind of safety nets, and saying, essentially, people are now making so much money not working that you've taken away the incentive for them to go out and get a job. So how does that work with some of the legislation before Congress now?
Yeah, this is actually, I think, a pretty important political point, and I think it's become a talking point on both sides of the conversation. And I think Deirdre's point is very relevant here as well. We're at a period where the country is not fully opened, and there are many, many school children, millions of them, who are not back full time, and that means families have to make adjustments around schedules. I think in the summer months, with camps restarting, it's still going to be an issue. I think by the fall, it'll be clear that the country is back to work, and if people are not willing to work, then you have to address that in a different way. But the Biden administration has been very strong in trying to push back at the notion that unemployment remains at any kind of level because people don't want to work. These are people that want jobs, and people are really still hurting in so many spheres of healthcare system as well as the broader economy. But it's tempered by the fear of spending too much and doing too much, and it does impact the day-to-day politics now at this critical juncture for the Biden presidency.
And you heard Biden mention child care relief in that speech. He says he's dedicating $39 billion. Rick, can you tell us a little bit more about that plan and what he's aiming to do there?
Sure, and this is a broad thinking about what infrastructure means, as we discussed previously, Diane. The White House has a view of infrastructure as more than roads and bridges. They call it human infrastructure. Where you want to find that in the dictionary. The idea is, though, you need to support people in ways that they work, and that a new economy, a 21st century economy, requires that sort of innovation, and that, yeah, bringing childcare to people. We've seen it rolled out through some of the COVID vaccinations as well, to try to find ways to patch holes just on a day-to-day basis. It is an urgent concern. If more people be working, if it was addressed. I think it's going to be hard to get any political support for this, though, until or unless you have some bipartisan buy-in on the other pieces of infrastructure, and that's why this becomes a key choice for Biden. If he wants to get the other broader ideas around infrastructure and childcare done, he may have to take a smaller deal.
And Deirdre, we have heard time and time again, particularly before things started looking better in the pandemic, at least, that the big mistake would be not to spend enough, not to pump enough money into the economy, and then that would be much more detrimental than the fears of putting too much money into the economy. But up until that point, the dangers of inflation had been largely ignored. Now we're seeing investors become a lot more cautious about that. So how does that balance strike on Wall Street when you've got Congress debating a lot more spending?
Well, I think your point is well taken, Diane, in that I think Congress as a whole realized that, for example, from the last economic shock that we had, it took 10 years. It took a decade to get all those jobs back added into the economy. No one wanted to go through that again. So I do think that's why we have seen so much public spending and so much support. And there's very few economists, honestly, who at this point would disagree with more and faster is better. And this is part of the reason why we are moving in the right direction as for this economic rebound as quickly as we are, even if there are a few bumps in the road. But going forward, I think one of the points that people are making about inflation is that this number today, let's call it tepid. You see the markets up, not that we have to live and die by the reactions of investors, But the Fed has telegraphed pretty clearly that it is going to hold steady and that, yes, some areas may see some inflationary pressures, but it seems as if the Fed is going to wait until the economy is showing a lot more strength before, for better or worse, being concerned about inflationary pressures, Diane.
And then finally, I wanted to ask you about supply chain issues, because the president mentioned that in his speech today. And this is something that affects all of us. If you're trying to buy a computer, if you're trying to buy a car, I mean, you name it. It seems like there's so many things that are hitting supply chain issues, particularly when it comes to computer chips. So, Deirdre, what is the update on that situation now? Because this is affecting so many different products and prices.
It sure is, Diane. Goldman Sachs put out a research note a week ago saying here are the 170 industries that are being affected by a shortage of semiconductors. So to your point, it is affecting so many products, ones that we buy every day. You mentioned computers, cars, I mean, breweries. There is not one business that is untouched by this. And it is one of the economic lessons from the pandemic is just how fragile the global supply chain, in fact, was. We see it most with cars. I mean, if you speak with people in the auto industry, they say, yeah, there's no way that this is really going to all be resolved by the end of this year. Optimistically, most analysts are looking for it to be resolved in the first quarter of next year. Again, it's this idea of a light switch. Just because you can bring workers back to factories, there are other elements involved, including transport, including just quirks of every single industry. And it just takes a little bit of time. I feel like a good analogy is, sitting by somebody who is trying to learn how to drive in a manual car, like a stick shift car. I feel like you're moving forward. Our economy is moving forward. There's just going to be a lot of stops and starts along the way, Diane.
I remember when I was learning how to drive stick shift, it was far from a smooth ride, Deirdre. And so, Rick, we heard the president bring up the supply chain issues today. What is he trying to put forward in order to address that?
Well, first, I never learned to drive stick, so I wouldn't recommend it necessarily one way or the other. I think, look, I think there's actually been a new effort in assuring supply chain in a slightly different angle as well. I'd mentioned the recent cyber attacks on critical pieces of the infrastructure, everything from transportation to meat to, of course, electrical grid and water grid and things like that. This has become a big issue up and down the economy, and I think you're seeing this White House trying to deliver on promises of building back from the middle, trying to build back a working class, and to assure businesses that they're going to have whatever they need whenever they need it, and Americans whatever they have and whenever they need it. And I think, look, these are complicated challenges that aren't going to be solved very quickly. And I think you're starting to see, though, the contours of a broad Biden economic approach come into view. And when they have numbers like these that are good enough to tout, they will tout them, but also know that there's a lot more that has to get done.
All right, Rick Klein and Deirdre Bolton, great to have you both. Thank you.
Thank you.
And today is National Gun Violence Awareness Day. When we come back, we'll talk to the mom behind a group raising awareness for both parents and kids. Stay with us. Welcome back. Today is National Gun Violence Awareness Day. So you might notice people around the country wearing orange to honor the lives lost to gun violence in America. According to Survey USA, 58% of American adults or someone they care about have experienced gun violence in their lifetime. And approximately 3 million American children witness gun violence every year. I want to bring in Shannon Watts, the founder of Moms Demand Action, and threat management expert Spencer Corson for more on this. Thank you both for being here this morning. Shannon, I want to start with you. Today is the first day of this Wear Orange weekend. How did this movement start?
It started back in 2015, and if you remember, Hydea Pendleton, she was a teenager who was shot and killed in Chicago, and her friends wore orange in her honor. It's the color that hunters wear to protect themselves and others when they're hunting, and it really became a campaign and a phenomenon. And so now, every year, the first weekend in June, people wear orange really to honor those whose lives have been stolen by gun violence or people who've been wounded by gun violence, and to call for an end to this crisis. And if people want to find an event near them this weekend, they just text the word orange to 64433.
And forgive me for not wearing orange this morning. I get dressed with a toddler hanging on me, so sometimes it's a wonder I get dressed at all. Spencer, I know you wrote a book called The Safety Trap, a security expert's secrets for staying safe in a dangerous world. You say you are never more in danger than in those moments when you feel you are safest. Can you explain that?
Absolutely. The biggest misnomer between safety and security is that safety is a feeling, but security is a state of being. And so just because we feel safe doesn't mean we are secure, but we're emotional beings. And when we feel safe, our vigilance tends to go down, which means our risk tends to go up. And the more safe we feel, the more at risk we are to falling into those pitfalls of danger that could get us into trouble. So the safety trap is all about understanding that just because our fears have abated, risk still remains.
And Shannon, you founded Moms Demand Action after the Sandy Hook massacre. Talk about fear there. What are you hoping to accomplish now with this group?
Well, it's important to remember that 100 Americans are shot and killed every single day, and over 200 are wounded. And there are about 400 million guns in America. If guns made us safer, we'd be the safest country in the world. Instead, what we've seen is an increasing rate of gun homicide, about 25 times more than any other peer nation, and exacerbated gun violence, particularly during COVID, right? This is an epidemic within a pandemic. But sadly, as the violence has grown, so has the movement to stop it. Thankfully, that we are really going toe-to-toe with the gun lobby and getting other Americans off the sidelines. We're educating people and organizing them and advocating and rallying for safer communities. And we're winning. You know, it's important to remember that I know everyone wants this cathartic moment in Congress we're all waiting for, but we are winning in state houses and boardrooms and city councils and school boards. And it really is important for everyone to join the movement. And that's really what Wear Orange Weekend is all about.
And so, Spencer, while all these people are trying to work on sort of solving the larger issue of eliminating or at least reducing this violence, what can we do as individuals to protect ourselves in a threatening situation?
What we want to do is just understand the overarching dynamic that awareness plus preparation equals safety. As our world returns to normalcy, we must also caution against a return to complacency, because as I say in The Safety Trap, gun violence, mass violence, suicide will continue until we as a society, as family, and as friends take a more active role in helping those who are hurting.
And unfortunately, kids are not immune to this, as we've learned tragically over and over again in this country. So what advice do you have for parents, Spencer, who want to teach their children about these kinds of safety tips, but you also don't want to scare them?
Absolutely. Make safety fun, not scary. It is always better to have that safety conversation with your children earlier rather than later. And one of the things I talk about in the book is empower them to participate in their own protection. So if your child is alone and afraid, or if they're out at a park and something bad happens, the 3 F's of food, flags, and family are places where children can know they can go to be protected. Anyone with a flag on their uniform or in front of a building is a safe place for them to go. Places that are selling food, have like restaurants or the ice cream stand, have been vetted and permitted. They've had background checks. And also if they see other families, other adults with children, those are good places for children to go to get help. So it's very important that we empower the children with the protective strategies that will not only help them when they're young, but that they can carry with them for their entire lives.
All right, Spencer Courson, Shannon Watts, great to have you both. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And in honor of Pride Month, meet the doctor making it his mission to help people feel comfortable in their skin at work. Today's Feel Good Friday is coming up after the break. Welcome back. It is time for Feel Good Friday, where we bring you a little good news heading into the weekend. And today we're celebrating Pride Month with the Chicago-based doctor and TikTok star who's using his platform to increase LGBTQ+ visibility at work. Dr. John, also known as That Gay Doctor, has more than 520,000 followers on TikTok, where he's encouraging people to be out and proud in the workplace. Take a look.
They call me that gay doctor and I practice primary care. I'm known for being sassy and for having a bit of flair. I'll check all of your blood work and I'll give you all the shots. I'll help with your mental health when your stomach is in knots. I won't shame you for having sex and I'll use your right pronouns. I get to dress like this, but you still have to wear these gowns. If you don't want to be judged, then you've come to the right place. I'll help you with your problems, I'm not just a pretty face.
And Dr. John is on live with us now to tell us more about this. Welcome. Happy Pride.
Hi, happy Pride.
So first of all, how did this whole thing start? What drove you to start making these videos?
So it honestly kind of started by accident. I just downloaded TikTok out of interest and made a video kind of as a joke to start. And my second one just got like millions of views, and I just kind of went with it. And people love to see just me being myself and being a doctor. And I just kind of blew up after that.
What was your reaction when you started seeing those numbers tick up on how many people were viewing these videos?
I couldn't believe it. I really it was something that I did not plan on, and would say to my friends, I don't even know why people are so interested in this. But it was awesome. And it's really become such a source of positivity for me in my life.
And I know most of your videos are kind of fun and lighthearted, but you don't shy away from tackling serious issues, too. We have a quick clip I want to play.
Imagine that there is a quality or characteristic about yourself that you cannot change, that historically people were treated very negatively about. And so other people who possessed that quality, they couldn't work certain jobs, they were often abused, treated as if they had mental illness, cast away from society and their family members. And so if you have that quality, but you're still able to be successful in your career, marriage, other aspects of life, don't you think that's something to be proud of and celebrated? It can give hope to others who have this quality, that they can overcome these barriers and life can get better.
So what kind of reactions have you gotten from people, not only from the fun and dancing kind of videos, but also these other videos where you kind of sit down and you're trying to put a message out there?
Yeah, I mean, I get mixed reviews. Of course, when you have a large social media following, there are always going to be people coming forth with negativity. But I try not to let those people get me down. And I try to use it as an opportunity to educate people, like that video that you just showed. The point of that, especially in Pride Month, is a lot of people will say things like, why is there no straight Pride Month? And it's really because they don't understand. And so I think presenting myself as a compassionate, caring, and fun person that I can relate to people and explaining things of that nature, I hope the message reaches home a little closer for them.
And you've said that there are many people who are out in their personal lives, but then they go back into the closet in the workplace in order to be professional. Why do you think it's so important that people be out and proud, as you say, not only at home, but also at work?
Because, I mean, it's just a part of your identity. You know, I do understand that it may not be safe for everybody to be out in the workplace. And so that's just an important thing to ask yourself before being out. But for me, it's a big part of mental health, you know, and not being able to be my authentic self in the workplace would be a huge negative source in my life. And I think that really it increases my ability to communicate with my coworkers, my patients, the fact that I have nothing to hide, and I really am just being myself while I'm at work.
And so what are you hoping that people take away from watching your videos? Not just people who are in the LGBTQ plus community, but as you said, you know, people who maybe aren't exposed to people from the LGBTQ plus community or think they aren't and have questions and want to know more.
Yeah, and that's kind of a big goal of it. I think that a lot of times people have misconceptions about the queer community because they don't personally know anybody in the community. And so maybe if they can see me and see that I'm just a normal, relatable guy, they can change their perspective on that. And I hope that to happen with my patients. I also want people to not be scared to go to the doctor and to not be nervous about it or feel like they can't be themselves or have anything to hide when they go to the doctor. I know a lot of queer people avoid going to the doctor because they're scared they're going to feel judged. And I really would like to do away with that because I want people to come in and get the help that they need.
All right. Dr. John, it's so great to have you. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
It's our pleasure. Happy Pride to you. And for more Feel Good Friday stories, you can go to goodmorningamerica.com. abc.com. And that does it for this ABC News Live update. I'm Diane Macedo. Thanks for joining us. And remember, ABC News Live is here for you all day with the latest news, context, and analysis. Stay safe and have a great day, everybody.
For decades, this great leader, often at Dr. King's side, was denied his rightful place in history because he was openly gay. No medal can change that, but today we honor Bayard Rustin's memory by taking our place in his march towards true equality, no matter who we are or who we love.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.